Assalamu alaikum, dear audience. From the platform of Kashana-e-Baseerat, this is Nikhat Raza bringing to you the translation of Fatima is Fatima by Dr. Ali Shariyati. Today we are going to begin with the 13th chapter and the page is 117. The title of the chapter is Freedom, Tragedy, Spiritual Strength. The first subtitle in this chapter is Khadija Dies. The dark years of confinement end. Khadija lives to see the salvation of the Muslims, her beloved husband, and her noble and loyal daughters. The Prophet experiences his first great victory over the Quraysh, but the destiny which has been sent to change our history allows for no peace or pleasure to reflect from his face, for two great tragedies fall upon him simultaneously. Abu Talib and Khadija both die within a few days of each other and within a few days of their freedom. Abu Talib had raised the orphan Muhammad and had made up for the kindness of his missing father and mother and his grandfather, Abu Abdul Muttalib. He looked up after the young man Muhammad and cared for him. He found work for him in the service of Khadija. Finally, it was he who acted as a father of the marriage of Khadija and Muhammad. He had supported the prophecy of Muhammad. With all of his influence, character, personality, and social credit, he had protected him. He even bore the 3 years in the confinement, the difficulties and hunger, and remained with him. It was because of him that Muhammad was saved from death and the horrible torture which his companions suffered. Now he has lost Abu Talib and is only protector against the anger, danger, and hatred of the city. And Khadija was the woman who gave up the privy of their life to his destiny. Muhammad, 25 years old, orphan and shepherd, having suffered the difficulties and poverty, now beside the wealthy Khadija, 40 or 45 years old, comes to know her through love with the faith of a fellow sufferer and thinker. He seeks refuge in her from the difficulties of poverty and life. He receives the kindness of a friend beside her and the love of a mother which he had not had. He benefits from her advice and the great protection which she gave him. Later, when he is appointed as God's prophet, she is with him step by step. She is beside him, beside his heart, beside his spirit. During the whole time of the thunderstorm of difficulties, fears, dangers, loneliness, years of hatred and enmity, battles, fights, and treacheries, she is with him from the first moment of the revelation until the moments of her death. She is with him during all of the moments of his life. She gives all of her life, love, faith, sacrifice, and wealth at the moment when he needs it the most. Now Muhammad has lost his protector, his compassionate fellow sufferer, the first person who believed him, the greatest giver of sympathy, and finally the mother of his Fatima, and Fatima has lost her mother. Difficulties and tortures increased. Abu Talib has gone. The Prophet is left defenseless in respect to the hatred. The hatred and enmity become violent when they witness the patience, perseverance, and the faith of Muhammad and his companions. Their roots become firmer and more merciless. The Prophet is very much alone. Abu Talib is no longer in the city, and Khadija is no longer at home. Fatima now more than ever senses the heavy burden of the unfortunate hatred and grudges, and because she is called the mother of her father. At, at the time that her sisters go to their husbands' homes, she is still tied to her mother's skirts. Mother, I never want to replace this home with another one. Mother, I will never leave you. Khadija, smiling, answers. They all say that, and we say, my daughter, the time will come. Fatima imploringly continues, no, I will never leave my father. No one will separate me from him. Her mother remains silent. Fatima senses she has such a mandate. Her message is not a child's desires. Her faith in her mandate gains strength when she hears her father begin his invitation in the following way. O Quraysh, take yourselves back in relationship to your God. I cannot implore anything for you. O children of Abd Manaf, in relationship to your God, I cannot implore anything for you. Abbas ibn Abdul Muttalib, in, in relationship to your God. I, O Safiya, daughter of Abdul Muttalib. O Fatima, take whatever you want of my wealth, but in relationship to God, I cannot implore anything for you. Fatima, full of understanding, spiritual desire, and perseverance, answers, yes, yes, dearest of fathers, the most respected of prophets. How surprising that the Prophet calls upon her in the presence of the leaders of the Quraysh as well as with the leaders of Hashmi tribe and Abdul Manafs. Her, a young girl, she alone, and only she from among her family. The childlike feelings and the loving kindness of the young girl, who hundreds of times reiterated that she would never marry and that she would never leave her father, is growing into a serious covenant and takes the color of the responsibility and a commandment. The first years of her life coincide with the first years of the mission and the difficulties and tortures of the beginnings of the mandate. Fatima, from among all of the children of Muhammad, is worthiest to have been able to bear the suffering of the difficulties, to bear the heavy weight of the responsibilities of the mandate which is upon her father's shoulders. She is aware of her fate, and so are her mother and father. On one of the last days of her life, Khadija, worried, turns to her and says, after me, what things will you do, my daughter? My life will end today or tomorrow. Zainab and Ruqayya, your two sisters, are at peace beside their kind husbands. My mind is not worried about Kulsum because her age and experience are enough to keep her. But you, Fatima, are drowned in difficulties. You have to suffer multiple sorrows and tribulations which increase daily. Fatima, who shared in bearing the burdens which had been placed upon the father's shoulders, answers, rest assured, mother, don't worry about me. The idol worshippers, Quraysh, will have a rebellion amongst themselves. They will torture and punish Muslims, and they will show no mercy. They will prejudge. The souls and hearts of the Muslims should rejoice in accepting this despotic torture. Fatima is the most worthy for having suffered this torture. She is special because the blessings of being the daughter of the Prophet is offered to her, and because of the kindness and respect which has been devoted to her. Dear audience, we come to page 120, and with this we also come to the end of chapter 13. Now we begin chapter 14, which titles as A New History Begins, and the page is 121. After the death of Abu Talib, enmity and hatred reaches its peak. A group that a group of the companions and followers of the Prophet to go to Ethiopia, while another group suffer loneliness and poverty under the increasing torture of the Quraysh. Muhammad, who has reached 50 years of age, whose life has been spent in difficulties without any security, is living alone with Fatima, his young daughter. But no, the hand of fate brings a son to this house, and no one knew what role he would play. Yes, Ali does not stay in his father's house and grow up there, but from childhood he lives beside Fatima. He is raised in the home of Fatima's father. The fate of the young boy is strangely connected to the fate of this father and this girl. History is taking the course. In the mysterious quiet, which is full of ambiguity, the stormy design of thought is nourished so that tomorrow the stone idols are broken that create barriers for the seekers of monopoly and that create discrimination. The first of the deceitful priests of the royal court die in the fire temples of the Persians. The great, frightening palaces of Madain are pulled down. The lustful, bloodthirsty emperor of Rome is pushed into the sea. But the greatest of all to fall, to be erased in the hearts and minds, is the rusted traditions and the chains of habit, and the pus of superstition and rotted myths, prejudices, feelings, and discriminatory beliefs that are against humanity. They are disconnected and washed. The previous values and honors are turned upside down and changed in an environment polluted with bruised fairy tales of racism and pride, aristocracy and power, epics of judgment and plunder. The worship of the earth, blood, and idols always cause the earth to revolt against the gods, because all these things, large or small, prevent freedom, equality, justice, spiritual struggle, and self-awareness for the unknown masses who lack glory and tribe. Instead of seeking history in rotted bones and fallen gravestones, and rulers of the sword who hold the gold, seek history in the blood, life, and motions of the people. Seek the line which begins with the heirs of the last chosen prophet. Each one is to have a finer cloak of martyrdom than the previous one. Each one either spends their life in the battlefield or teaching people or in the prison of the oppressors. This important mandate in history begins with Fatima, and is carrying out this work. History needs an Ali. This is why the kind hand of poverty causes the child of Abu Talib, even though he had a father, to go to the house of his uncle's son, so that his spirit does not become polluted by his own family's ignorance when the revelation arrives. He is present from the time of the first revelation. He is there from the moment that the mission begins. He lives through the fire of difficulties, problems, and thoughts, so that he can play the difficult role he has to play in the migration, so that he can participate in the battles of Badr, Uhud, Khaybar, Fatah, and Hunain, and thereby guarantee the victory of the Islamic Revolution, so that he can grow up close to Fatima, and finally, so that with Fatima he can establish the exemplary family in the continuation of work of Abraham, begin a new history. Migration. 13 years of difficulty, resistance, confinement, and torture in Mecca end. Fatima, from early childhood, patiently stood and alongside her father in the city, in their home, in their imprisonment. With her weak constitution, she withstood the angry blows of envy and the difficulties of resistance in the savage environment of ignorance. With her little hands, she caressed her hero father like a mother. The migration begins. Muslims go to Medina. The Prophet and Abu Bakr secretly leave Makkah. Fatima and her sister Kulsum also leave Makkah. Suddenly, one of the evil men of Quraysh, who had a history of having caused the Prophet difficulties, catches up with them and violently throws them down. Fatima, who essentially had a weak constitution and who had suffered from the effects of 3 years in prison, is greatly affected by this event. She suffers pain the entire way to Medina. This uncalled for act of Hurayt ibn Nazik had such an effect upon Muslims, and in particular the Prophet and Ali, that even 8 years later, when conquering Mecca, they had not forgotten what he had done. His name is mentioned among those who should not be spared. They said that even if he is hanging on the cloth of the Kaaba, he should be killed. It was no accident that Ali carried out this order. In Medina. Now they are in Medina. The Prophet has built his mosque, and next to it the house which he built from mud and leaves of palm trees. Then he announces the ceremony of the covenant of brotherhood. Every two should become brothers in the way of God. Jafar ibn Abu Talib became the brother of Maaz bin Jabal. Abu Bakr, the brother of Kharija bin Zahir. Umar ibn Khattab, the brother of Utabai ibn Malik, and Usman, the brother of Us bin Sabit, and I am his brother. Muhammad is the brother of Ali. Once again, from among all the figures, Ali is placed beside Muhammad. Ali takes another step closer to Muhammad. Fatima bint Asad, the mother of Ali, nursed Muhammad. Abu Talib, the father of Ali, protected Muhammad. Muhammad grew up in the house of Ali. Ali grew up in the house of Muhammad beside Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad. Ali was nourished in the lap of Khadija, the mother of Fatima. The son of the uncle of Muhammad, child of Muhammad, has now become the brother of Muhammad. The sealing of the link. There remains one more step until Ali can reach the final stage which is foreseen for him in the fate of Muhammad and the honor of Islam. Fatima has kept her promise. In the home of her father, she lives quietly and alone. She rejects Umar and Abu Bakr's offers of marriage. All of the companions know that Fatima has a very special fate, and they know that the Prophet will never give her hand in marriage without consulting her. Fatima grows up with Ali. She sees him as a dear older brother, as a beloved butterfly around her father. Fate throws these two together for very special reasons. Neither one of them are tied to the age of ignorance. They both grow up from the beginning with the mission. They develop under the light of the revelation. What feelings does Fatima have towards Ali? What happens from the great, brave, courageous feeling of Ali towards Fatima? It is possible that we could conceive of them, but the words to express it are missing. How can we draw the complicated feelings which arise from faith, love, spiritual strength, worship, and the kind of a brother and a sister who share the same belief and the familiarity of two spirits? They share the difficulties and troubles of faith together, being fellow travelers, step by step, moment by moment, for their whole lifetime. They encounter kindness and inspiration mixed with faith. Why is Ali silent? He is 25 years old. Fatima has reached puberty. She is either 9 years or 19. In my opinion, the obstacles before Ali are clear. Fatima has endowed herself to her father. She knows herself to be the mother of her father and the person who runs the house. How could Ali take her home from this house where the daughter is so attached to her father to the extent that they cannot be separated? Ask Muhammad for her hand in marriage. Ali shares the same feelings as Fatima does. Suddenly the picture changes. Aisha comes into the house of the Prophet. The Prophet, for the first and the last time in life, takes a young, alive, desiring girl as his wife. Fatima, little by little, senses that her father's young bride will replace Khadija and hers, if not in his heart, but undoubtedly in his house. Ali also senses that the moment which destiny has prepared for them has arrived. But he has nothing. A boy who has grown up in Muhammad's house, who has spent his youth struggling in the way of his beliefs, he did not have an opportunity to gather or save things. The only capital he has in the world is the sacrifice he has made upon the way of Muhammad through his faith in Muhammad. Capital, not even a house or piece of furniture, nothing. At the same time, we see that he approaches the Prophet. He is seated next to him. He has put his head down and speaks with his beautiful shyness. What do you want, son? What do you want, son of Abu Talib? With an answer full of shame and inner peace. I want to take the name of Fatima, daughter of the Prophet. The Prophet answers, Wonderful, congratulations. The next day in the mosque, the Prophet asks him, Do you have anything? Nothing, O Prophet. Where is the shield I gave you in the battle of Badr? It's with me. Give that. Ali quickly went, got the shield, and returned and handed it to the Prophet. The Prophet ordered that it be sold in the bazaar with its small price. He should begin his life. Osman brought the shield for 47 Osman bought the shield for 47 dirhams. The Prophet called his companions together and he himself performed the wedding ceremony. Fatima, daughter of the Prophet, according to the ruling tradition, is given to Ali. They prayed for their sound progeny and then they brought out the dish of dates. And this was the wedding ceremony. The list of Fatima's property: a handmill, a wooden bowl, and a cotton rug. At the beginning of the second year of migration, Ali found a house beside the mosque of Quba, and he took Fatima there to his home. Hamza, one of the first martyrs, the great hero of the religious crusades, an uncle of the Prophet and Ali, sacrificed 2 camels and invited the people of Medina to his home for the wedding celebration. The Prophet instructed Salama to accompany the bride to Ali's house. Then Bilal called upon the people to the evening prayer. After the prayers, the Prophet went to Ali's house. He asked for a bowl full of water, and while he recited some verses from the Quran, he asked the bride and the groom to drink from that water. He then made his ablution with it and sprinkled it upon both of their heads. He wished to leave when Fatima began crying. It was the first time that she was to be separated from her father. The Prophet comforted her with these words: I am leaving you with a person of the strongest faith, a man who is the most knowledgeable among those with knowledge, the most ethical among those with ethics, and the highest of spirits among the spiritual. Struggle struggles continue to renew the spirit. This departure from Muhammad begins the second part of her life. Destiny brings new difficulties and sorrows for this most beloved and precious beings of humanity. Fatima, who has grown up in poverty and with the hardships of the home of her father, now has come to home of Ali, a home where its only decoration and furniture is love and poverty. The difficulties of life in Ali's house begin, but the greatest difficulty of all is that Fatima had the same responsibilities she previously had, but they are now in connection with Ali, a youth whom she had until yesterday looked upon as a brother and today as a husband. Fatima knows that the life of Ali will remain as this. She knows that her only thing, she knows that he only thinks about jihad, God, and people. He will return home with only empty hands. Fatima finds herself more responsible here when she was Fatima finds herself more responsible here than when she was in her father's home. She was the responsibility of being the wife of a man who is more serious than lucky and who is greater than life. Fatima grinds the wheat herself. She bakes the bread. She works in the house and is seen hundreds of times bringing water from outside her home. Ali, who knows the generosity and the majesty of Fatima and more than loves her for multiple reasons, knows the difficulties that she has grown up with, which have made her weak and is thereby sorrowed by all of the work and labor which she must perform. One day, in a tone of sympathy, he says, Fatima Zahra, you have placed yourself in so many difficulties that my heart breaks for you. God has made many workers of Muslims. Ask the Prophet to give you one of them to you. Fatima seeks out her father. What is it, my daughter? I come to see how you are. She returns home and tells Ali is Ali she is too ashamed and tells Ali. She returns home and tells Ali she is too ashamed to ask anything of her father. Ali, who is struck with wonder, calls Fatima and they return together to the Prophet and he himself asks the question. The Prophet answers without hesitation, No, by God, I will not give you even a prisoner of war. The stomach of the companions are hungry, and I find nothing to give them. I have to exchange them and then feed the hungry companions. Ali and Fatima thank him with empty hands, return home. It is recorded. The husband and the wife return home to an empty house. Both remain silent and thinking about what they had asked of the Prophet. The Prophet thought all the day about the answer he had given to the beloveds. Suddenly the door opens and the Prophet appears. It is not only the darkness of the night, but also the coldness which causes Ali and Fatima to shiver. He sees that they had placed a thin cloth upon themselves. It is so short that when they pull it up over their heads, their feet are exposed, and when they cover their feet, their heads are exposed. Softly he commands them, Do you move from your places? Then he adds, Don't you want to know about something which is better than what you had asked of me? Of course, Prophet, O Prophet of God. It is something which Gabriel had brought for me, which I now share with you. After every ritual prayer, say Allahu Akbar, God is greatest, 10 times. Then Alhamdulillah, praise belongs to God 10 times. And then Subhanallah 10 times. When you have quietly crawled into the bed, say Allahu Akbar 35 times. Alhamdulillah 33 times and Subhanallah 33 times. Once again, Fatima takes this as a lesson. Once again, with a gentle blow, she learns something which reaches the depth of her being. She is Fatima. This is a lesson which she knows. Although she has learnt it from childhood, such lessons should follow continuously. They require successive teachings and learnings. This is not a lesson of knowledge, but rather a lesson in becoming. Becoming Fatima is not easy. She is a holy trust. It requires that she ascends many steps and fly many flights into higher worlds, while being step by step and wing to wing with Ali. She must share with Ali all in his sorrows and in his difficulties. She has the greatest responsibility in the history of freedom, jihad, and humanity. She is the link in a chain which extends from Ibrahim to Muhammad, from Hussein to the 12th Imam, survivors to the end of the history. Fatima has the responsibility of being the link between prophecy and imamat. They are the values of Fatima herself. For her to be Fatima obliges the Prophet to be strict with this special and exceptional companion. She should not have a single moment of peace in life, for that might keep her from constant becoming. Sorrow and loneliness are the water and the earth of this girl, who must grow under the light of revelation and bear the burdens of freedom and justice. She is the beginning of the pure roots, where each branch which grows is appointed to take the fire of God like Prometheus from the heaven and give it to the people on the earth. They must, like Atlas, carry the heavy globe of the earth upon their shoulders and bear it. This is why Fatima always be learning, a learning which, like light and air and food, never ends for a tree but rather is lasting. A word instead of a servant, only this wonderful bride and groom can understand that one can live by a word. They were happy, drank it, and ate it, and were filled by it. These words, like the rain, must continue to fall, and only these two thirsty creatures who have grown from amongst the highest form of humanity are obliged to drink it and grow with it. The sudden sound of Muhammad in the darkness, in the dark night, and the meaningful silence held the call of this rainwater. It is not without reason that Ali, a man engaged in religious struggle, full of effort and work, the man who prays not out of habit and who is this night says, "May God be my witness that from the night that I received this lesson from the Prophet, I have not forgotten it for a single night." In amazement they ask, "Every night of even the night of Siffin?" And Ali says again, emphasizing even more, even in the night of Siffin. Fatima, who lives with this lesson until she dies. Fatima also lives with this lesson until she dies. These prayers are registered in her name. It is these heavenly words which come to help her in her home instead of a servant. They are the wedding present he himself gives his daughter. The Prophet is very strict with the beloved daughter, Fatima. He has learned this method from God. There is no prophet in the whole of the Quran who is so punished and so criticized as Muhammad. Why? Because none of the other prophets were so beloved in the eyes of God, and none of them were responsible for the people. One day, like any other day, the Prophet enters Fatima's home. His eye falls upon a patterned curtain. He frowned, says nothing, and leaves. Fatima senses it. He knows what her sin is. She also knows what repentance is. She immediately takes the curtain off from the wall and sends it to her father so that he can sell it and give the money to the needy Medina. Why so rough and strict? Why so rough and strict? Zainab, her sister, lives in luxury and splendor in Abul Asir's house. Her other sisters, Ruqayya and Kulsum, live in a wealthy and comfortable house. Fatima never heard that her sisters were reproached for their wealth and splendor. From the way of expression, the type of discipline of the Prophet upon her, it is clear that Fatima is something else, another kind of daughter, so the Prophet addresses her. Fatima, work now because tomorrow I can do nothing for you. You can see the distance between this Islam and the Islam which says one tear for Hussein will put out the fires of the hell. Or even if one's sins are greater than the foam of the oceans, the grains of sand and the stars in the sky, they will be forgiven. Or friendship with Ali will turn all of one's sins into benefits on the day of judgment. This means essentially that anyone who does not sin in this world or who sins little is a fool because they will have nothing which cannot be changed into benefits in the next world. More terrifying than this are the words which God is supposed to have said. The friends of Ali are in heaven, and even if they disobey me, the enemies of Ali are in hell, even if they obey me. Dear audience, with this we come to our present session. We are on towards the end of page 130 of the book, and next time, inshallah, we will begin from the end of page 30 and go ahead. Khuda Hafiz for until then.